welcome to Perspective. I am JAWAD TEHAMI. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have long held fraternal and brotherly relations. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had a 3-day official visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and he was accompanied by a 13-member high-level delegation. And before heading towards Saudi Arabia, the Prime Minister in a statement said that this maiden visit of his, after assuming the Prime Ministership, is aimed at renewing and reaffirming the bonds of brotherhood and friendship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He held a meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, in which trade, economic ties, as well as investment opportunities between the two countries were discussed, as well as the creation of opportunities for the manpower of Pakistan into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Also, the Prime Minister held a meeting with the OIC Secretary General Hussein Brahim Taha, in which matters which include Kashmir dispute as well as Palestine issue and Islamophobia were also discussed. And to talk more about what exactly were the prospects from this particular visit of Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia, I'm joined today at Perspective by Dr. Jamil Khan, former ambassador, who is joining me on Skype, and Mr. Rana Ehsan Afzal, who is leader Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. He is also joining me on Skype. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Jamil Khan and Mr. Rana Ehsan Afzal, for your time at Perspective. I'll start the discussion with you, Dr. Jamil Khan. When we talk about the fraternal and brotherly relations between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said that this visit was aimed at renewing and reaffirming the bonds of brotherhood and a friendship between Pakistan and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. At this given point in history, how significant do you think this visit was for both the countries?
I think in the overall political landscape, both regional and international, if you look at the visit of Prime Minister, the high-level delegation visit, I would not hesitate in saying that it's going to be a game changer. And there are reasons for it. In the subsequent discussion, I will definitely deliberate upon it. In fact, during the same period of time, the Turkish president also is visiting. And the Turkish president is visiting after their sore relations. For about 10 years, is visiting. And after transferring Jamal Khashoggi case back to Saudi Arabia. And we all understand that what was going on between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, I think that would come in the cross reference of the talks during our course of discussion, because I have at the back of my mind the proxy war which is going on in the Middle Eastern countries. And this Prime Minister's visit in particular, it's not only the reaffirming, it's basically further strengthening the relation. Right, and further strengthening the relation based on our bonds of defense cooperation, defense coordination, strategically time-tested one. Right, so from that angle, and now this is, I think, one of those best scenario where this Prime Minister basically has a personal rapport with the royal family. That's one. And second, during the time of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz group, once the blast had taken place, the nuclear test had taken place, Saudi Arabia went all out to help Pakistan. Not only that, this is the economic perspective, but on the geopolitical spectrum of what is going on in the world today, Pakistan has its own significance. Turkey has its own significance. And I guess that's the reason is the two leaders, they were almost at the same time in that country. Now, coming back to this economic tie, the Prime Minister had taken some proposal, and I'm sure in the subsequent hours or by tomorrow, we'll find some definite and candid results of it, because we already have about 4.2 billion facilities from Saudi Arabia, and there was an additional 3.2 billion, which was the proposal was taken by the Prime Minister, making altogether 7.4 billion. And that I'm quite hopeful that Saudi Arabia now, with the Prime Minister's this new effort and renewed effort it's going to materialize in some shape or the other. So that is one economic tie aspect. The
Right,
other
right.
aspect is
So,
Saudi.
Dr. Jamil, beg your pardon for the interruption. I'll come back to you and we'll discuss into detail what exactly the economic prospects or enhancing the trade volume between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia lie ahead. Now, I'll move to Mr. Rana Ehsan Afzal. How do you think this particular visit at this point in history can strengthen and enhance the ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia? Okay,
The
we
mic
can't
is muted.
hear you, unfortunately, Mr. Rana. I'll come back to you. Dr. Jamil, please go ahead and complete your
Can
thought.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Mr.
Can
Rana
you
Afzal,
ask the
please go
question
ahead.
again? I didn't hear you. I didn't hear your question. Please, if you could repeat that.
Okay, how do you think this particular visit by Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to Saudi Arabia at this point in history can strengthen the ties between the two countries for future?
Well, I think the ties between the two countries are very important, and their history starts from the independence of Pakistan. Saudi Arabia hosts the largest expatriate Pakistani community, that is almost 2 million people. There are almost 70,000 Pakistanis employed in the Saudi government. And we have military ties. We have, Pakistan armed forces deployed over there. Their military joins us here in Pakistan for mock exercises or courses. Similarly, there are plans that Aramco, Sabic announced investments in Gwadar. They did not move forward. That is going to be an agenda of discussion. They announced a 10 billion when the Saudi prince visited Pakistan in 2019. He announced a 10 billion investment plan in Gwadar. So that is going to be one agenda. We wish that it could be revived. We want to see that investment coming to Pakistan. Similarly, as Ambassador Saab has already said that there are going to be talks about uh, some additional facility of beyond 3 billion US dollars. That is going to be a point of discussion. The deferred oil payments, that is going to be a discussion. But what is most important is that the fact that the Prime Minister has visited Saudi Arabia, his first maiden visit being the Prime Minister, shows the importance Pakistan and the Pakistani government puts on this relationship. And it is to reassure that we stand by our brother even in OIC. We are the leading two countries in the Organization of Islamic Countries. So this visit will hopefully cater to all these aspects.
Right. Dr. Jamil Khan, as just Mr. Rana Afzal has alluded to the fact that Pakistan would have definitely requested the additional package, now enhancement of $3.2 billion from Kingdom Saudi Arabia, that will go up to $7.4 billion, and the amount of deposit would be increased from 3 billion to 5 billion rupees, while the Saudi oil facility would be doubled, and that would go from 1.2 billion dollars to 2.4 billion dollars. But there is another aspect to this, that the IMF conditions are going to be applied on this. How do you think those conditions are going to affect the inclusion of this package into Pakistan's economy?
So IMF, as a matter of fact, if you are getting dollars from any source, IMF doesn't really put any restriction on it, basically, and so long as it doesn't disturb the balance of payment. In fact, our problem at the moment is the balance of payment, our depleted foreign exchange, and depleted foreign exchange, which is barely for about 2 months left for the import of the Pakistan. But with these facilities, I'm sure A, that the foreign exchange reserve would increase, B, that the IMF should not have any objection to it, and C, that once the economy is slightly stabilized, because we know it's in a dismal condition at this point in time, we have about 267 billion internal and external debt, which is huge, and we know how the debt servicing we are making, which is so huge that most of our budget portion is really exhausted in debt servicing. All those challenges this government has to face, and this government has to really come up with some strategy. So one of the strategy is the first visit to Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is a leading country in Gulf states and in OIC, basically this platform. So whatever Saudi Arabia decides, the Gulf country, most of them they toe the line. And see how smartly this visit was planned by the Foreign Office, of course, in the Prime Minister's the instructions that he first visited Saudi Arabia, and now he's coming to UAE, because UAE and Saudi Arabia, they work in tandem in most of the geopolitical or economic fronts. You might have noticed that in February, President Erdogan first visited UAE, and he was able to have a currency swap of more than $4.2 billion currency swap at that point in time. And he also ironed out some of those or paved the way for his next visit to Saudi Arabia. So all the Gulf countries, which is about half the population of Pakistan, the entire all 7 countries of the Gulf states, so they definitely look up to the Saudi Arabia. And as has been very clearly indicated, that we have our overseas Pakistanis, we have our expatriates there. We are getting maximum foreign exchange from Saudi Arabia, and it's touching almost over $4 billion. Sometime back, I had that
Right.
figure in my mind. From UAE, it's more than about $3 billion we getting it. Not only that, but we have our source of strength by deploying these people in the country. And Vision 2030, the MBS vision of 2030, it has such a huge scope for Pakistan. And see, the Turkey is also trying. Turkey is also trying to have
Right.
its
Dr. Jamil Khan, I'll come
post.
back to you. I'm joined by another guest in the show right now, Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar. Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar happens to be a foreign affairs expert. He's joining me on the phone line. So, Dr. Waqas, when we talk about this particular visit by Pakistan's Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia, it was a maiden visit by the Prime Minister after he assumed the office of the Premiership. And he said that the ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are very close, and this visit aims at renewing and reaffirming those ties and bonds of brotherhood. On a diplomatic level, how significant and crucial do you think this visit was?
Thank you for having me here. I guess the significance is very much there, because keeping the historical connection or connectivities between both these countries, I mean, this is from the very inception of our country, Pakistan. I guess when we see the overall political or strategic landscape of this area, in past we have also seen one important thing, that Saudi Arabia has been very much there when it comes to our international or diplomatic stance on different issues, particularly when we see OIC and contact group on Kashmir. There have been a lot of support in past as well. Of course, it has, if you see largely, as the other guest mentioned as well, we have political, economic and other dimensions of this relationship as well. But particularly at this moment, if you see, the significance is that it's not only PML and government at the Prime Minister there. We have the members of the cabinet from other parties as well. So it's very inclusive government, quite representative, and it's also a manifestation of the fact that across the parties in Pakistan, there is a consensus and there is a total consensus that the relationship between the Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, of course, are of paramount importance. And in past, there have been, I mean, this is, of course, one of the areas, the economic issues right now that we are confronted with. And in past, Saudi Arabia has been rescuing, to be honest, us at difficult times. But I guess it's a time now we need to think further that how to expand, because after the MBS, the very thinking and the new ideas, I mean, in economy, towards the society and towards our social system, particularly in KSA, if we see, that has over the period of time evolved. So I guess we also need to see how we can deepen this economic and political and of course strategic ties. I mean, in past they have also there's a promise of investing some
Right, your point is well
billion
taken.
dollars
Dr.
in
Vakas, you
China.
alluded to the fact that there is a need to enhance economic ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. There are news that Pakistan requested addition of $3.2 billion in an earlier package that would be enhanced to $7.4 billion. Given the state of economy in Pakistan right now, how important do you think it would be the addition of this $3.2 billion to stabilize Pakistan's economy?
I mean, see, this has also happened in past. If you see, of course, right now we are at the stage where, of course, we need some not only this amount in deposit, but also this Saudi oil facility. We have requested them to double that, but of course, this is very significant in short term. But I guess in long term, we need to see that how to make this relationship more, not only strategic but economically more stable, and where Pakistan can offer. I mean, it has potential to offer itself as a market to the Saudi Arabia as well. Because and also Pakistan need to understand that Pakistan have to. Of course, we have a lot of labor force. I mean, we have engineers, doctors, but a lot number is. I mean, we have the laborers, and we try to understand that we have to build the capacity of our human resource. To further, we need to see the deepen this economic relationship. We need to convince and maybe to create a conducive environment where the investment from the Saudi Arabia in future could come here, and this relationship becomes a relationship not only at a time when I mean, of course, right now we are in economic crisis, but this relationship of economics should be more sustained and bilateral, so that of new future. I mean, one of the ideas, if you see the MBS idea towards KSA's economy in future is quite innovative. I mean, they've been talking about environment, they've been talking about sustainable development. So I guess Pakistan has not only a lot of human resource, but also natural resource that both can collaborate, coordinate, and create a mechanism where this relationship can be further deepened besides politics and strategic as well.
Right. Mr. Rana Afzal, what do you think? What are those key areas which can be focused upon between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia in which the economic ties can be enhanced, and when it comes to enhancing the trade volume?
I'd like to respond on the current economic situation of Pakistan, and then I can move to your question. So currently, the challenge is that your foreign reserves were standing at almost 20 billion US dollars in August of this financial year, and they've reached almost 10 billion mark currently, and that is in the beginning of April. So your import bill is averaging around 6 billion. So a 2-month import bill would stand around 12 billion US dollars. So you don't even have a cover for 2 months. So this is the challenge. You have a current account deficit, which can, touch almost 19, 20 billion US dollar. And then you have your debt repayments of this financial year, which are, around 3 to 4 billion dollars currently. So this crisis of shortage of dollars is one portion of, an area of interest. And we've talked about that package with the Saudi government, but that is not going to be enough. You will have to go with the IMF program. You will have to, continue that. And if you are able to do that, then you can go and float your bonds in the international markets and you'll get a good rate. Otherwise, the rate would not be affordable. So obviously, the deferred payment is an area which will, the oil facility will give us some relief on the external side, and we're hopeful that it will happen. Coming to the relationship and what are the areas of focus, as I've said, that you have the largest amount of Pakistani expatriates living in Saudi Arabia, compared to any other country in the world. There are issues that are always, under process with them. There are visa issues, there are, issues related to the labor law, their movement, other issues, people, in jails. So that is always a topic of discussion. Then, export from Pakistan related to meat, facilitation of export from Pakistan to Gulf countries. That is always a discussion point, and a lot of improvement can be done there. Similarly, when it comes to the Saudis investing in Pakistan, their facilitation, giving them an atmosphere which is investment friendly, that should be explored, and that is going to be talked about in this visit. our issues, common issues of OIC. Kashmir is a issue
Mr.
which
Rana
always
Ihsan
comes
Afzal, your
under
point is well
discussion
taken.
in.
I'll try to take from this point the Manpower Pakistani expatriates in Saudi Arabia. There happen to be around 2 million in Saudi Arabia. And of course, one of the key areas that was to be discussed between Pakistani top leadership with the Saudi top leadership included this, that the creation of opportunities for Pakistani manpower in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Dr. Jamil Khan, what are those key problems, do you think, the Pakistani expatriates usually face over there, and what could be the possible strategies both the countries can chalk out in order to facilitate them and enhance their skill set as well?
No, huge problems are overseas Pakistanis they face all over the world. I would say because our embassies, I have my personal experience. We tried to restructure wherever I was in DBI, in UAE, and other places. We tried to restructure, and we partially succeeded in UAE. 100% we succeeded in Abu Dhabi, partially in Dubai, and the facilitation to our overseas Pakistan. What are those facilitations? In fact, the consular services. And consular services, we have the funds to deal with the consular services. And those consular services, as you were mentioning in your deliberation a little while ago, your point, that the people there in the legal complications such as some crime, some petty crimes, and sometimes unnecessary, sometimes not really based on the legal grounds. So those are the areas where our embassies and our council section of the embassy they should come up. And second is their facilitation, such as the Nadra card, although it's online now, but our people mostly they are the workforce. They need some assistance even filling up the online form. So the counter has to be created on that. Third, the best thing, which in fact I had also made a proposal that the expatriates who are there in Saudi Arabia and in UAE altogether, they are almost about close to 5 million Pakistanis, and these are the two major countries, and of course the other countries also. What we can do is that we should have our outreach, enhanced outreach. We should not really have those colonial style of dealing with our overseas Pakistanis, which has been happening in past, which has been happening since for the past so many decades. And this is very simple to fix. It's just restructuring in the foreign office, having oversight. In fact, there is no oversight in the embassies how the overseas Pakistanis are being dealt. One. Second, the product is to be launched. A very simple product is to be launched. We are going to, of course, after the IMF program, we will, as it was mentioned, we will be in a position to float our bonds at the better rates, right? So instead of doing that, and of course, we can concurrently, we need the dollars, we need the foreign exchange. Concurrently, this is our asset. And if the proposal, in fact, I had also sent it, if we do some parity loaning to these labor class of people in UAE and Saudi Arabia, you will be able to enhance your foreign exchange to about $5 to $6 billion very soon. And what is that proposal? Basically, if a labor force, any member of the labor force in Saudi Arabia or UAE, if they are sending money to their loved ones here, for example, if they're sending $100 or $1,000, the government of Pakistan give them the parity loan of a portion that is 20%, 30%, 40% without any question asked, and whatever assets they are making in their villages. So this is a long description and illustration of it, but there are so many products which could be launched to these people, and we can immediately, but that can only happen if we really give them the personal touch. What I had done during my tenure there, that the government of Pakistan has its commendation certificate. So I got it printed in the best of the best press, and I started giving to all those people who would send $10,000 and more. And since they are there, since ages, and they have that much of reserve, so they started sending a lot of money, and the foreign exchange jumped from 1.2 billion to 3.3 billion within a range of about 2 years. So there are very baby steps, simple steps, but we have to give an affection to our overseas Pakistani.
That's a
unless
phenomenal
we give
increase
that personal
indeed.
touch.
Dr. Jamil Khan, your point is well taken. So, Dr. Waqas, When we talk about Pakistani expatriates, of course, they add to the economy of Pakistan by sending in remittances as well over there that enhances the economic outlook of the country as well. When we talk about they're working in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, of course, they're adding to their economy as well. What sort of facilitation do you think the kingdom could provide them and make them feel at ease over there in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia while working?
See, before answering this question, I must say that, of course, we have, I guess, one of the largest numbers of expats working in KSA, particularly when we see the number crossing of millions, 2 million, I guess. What I guess the fundamental idea is to, of course, former governments as well, and the current government will also, of course, keep on talking about the issues, labor particularly pertaining to labor and all other things with the post government. But particularly when it comes to, I guess, we also as a nation and as a government, we also need to see that there's a vision 2030 of the new, of the particularly ambitious regarding Saudi Arabia that is about a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and ambitious nation. So I guess we also need to see that how the important sectors like health, education, infrastructure, recreation, tourism, these are the particular, I guess, the areas that they are going to focus. We need to see how we can, build our human resource. We can think of creating a human resource, a human capital that can, I guess, contribute towards these ambitious, I must say, goals, but in a very productive way. Right now, the fundamental challenge to our experts working in Saudi Arabia is that they are at a level which, no harm in doing job of a labor, but of course, when we see the number of other nations, particularly those who have been doing some white-collar jobs or maybe technical expertise involved in those jobs, their number is quite high. So I guess this current government also should need to see that one, that how important, how this will be very important for the government, that how they can create an infrastructure where we can produce greater health experts and of course collaborate on those areas. On education particularly, quite recently people have been going now teaching their universities, of course, but it's not enough. And infrastructure and other areas as well. So I guess the time has rapidly changed. We should, of course, we can't stop sending or asking people not to go, of course, because we have the poverty issues. But there should be a strategic direction that the relationship would further be cemented, or it will be bilateral in a very more decent way. I must say that if we bring in people with more technical expertise over there, if we connect our society and our educationists, our other people, our business community with the community in the Saudi Arabia, so that the potential of even our side could also be built, and this can be a long-term sustainable thing. So I guess, in my opinion, we need to target that what is the Vision 2030 and what Pakistan can contribute in that, Pakistan's human resource, and of course, how they can contribute to our society and well-being, of course, because this relationship is, I guess, long-standing relationship. And I must say, in past, there must be efforts, of course, improving this, but these efforts should be based on some very sound, solid grounds. Of course, we have religious affinities. They are the custodian up to the holy sites. Of course, there is a religious, emotional, strategic, and of course, military. We see in past there have been a lot of cooperation, but on economic side, it's quite lopsided. So you have to come out of this and make a relationship which is long-term sustainable. Otherwise, if we see in past, many countries have created more spaces and snatched, I must say, we couldn't claim our space over there in that economy, I guess, to the level that we should, I guess. So I guess this is the right time we need to see that how we can send our very empowered, educated, technically resourceful human resource to have a more
resource
meaningful
into the kingdom. Right, your point is well taken, Dr. Waqas. Mr. Ehsan, you represent Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. Of course, it is running the government in Pakistan. Now, what measures do you think or this government is going to take in order to provide that ease of doing business in Pakistan, especially to the Saudi investors?
Well, you have the Board of Investment for Pakistan, and then you have your provincial Board of Investments and Trade, and their focus is specifically on ease of doing business for foreign investors. It is giving them a one-window operation. We need to work on that, from land procurement to getting utility connections for businesses to stand on, to providing facilitation with banks. So it has to come up with the whole package. So registration of company in Pakistan, how lumbersome is the process? So all these aspects need to be catered for, to make the investors, to give them an environment which is going to be investment friendly. So that is going to be our priority area. Of course, we want FDI to increase in Pakistan, and these are the tools which we will be using, as I've said, the Board of Investment and the provincial trade bodies, which are investment and trade bodies. So hopefully uh, we will look into that. On your previous question to the previous guest, I would just like to add that for this expat community in Saudi Arabia, the Pakistanis working over there, ensuring that labor laws are ensured and human rights are not violated for these people working over there. Similarly, if their interaction with the law enforcement agencies, it should be smoothened, and all these areas need to be covered. That is how the Saudi government can facilitate the expatriates, Pakistani expatriates over there.
Right. Dr. Jamil Khan, what measures should this government take in order to make the environment business friendly for the Saudi investors and businesses in particular? And what are those key areas in which the Saudi businesses can invest in Pakistan?
Strategically, of course, it's a long-term and a short-term and medium-term planning. But we don't have the luxury of that much time. We have to really plan it for a short-term measure first, so that we become slightly stable to think about medium-term and the long-term. And I'm talking about what we have now, the situation of our economy. So what we need to do, one, that it has already been discussed, we have vocational training programs. If we are talking about Vision 2030, this is what Mr. Erdogan, the president, has focused on. Vision 2030, and he started reaping the fruits of it. As I was telling you, it's enhancement of export. Ever since he planned to visit Saudi Arabia, the export from Turkey enhanced. I've already described about the currency swap from UAE. Now, what we need to do, vocational training, Punjab province has maximum number of the vocational training program and maximum number of these training centers which are internationally certified, the GILD, the ISO, and other certification agencies. Other provinces are lagging behind a lot. So they have to be really jacked up a little more. And if we are able to produce a proper manpower, but this is what the complaint I have been getting once I was in UAE, and this is what I was getting the complaint that the Philippine government, they have a complete structure to train them and send them to UAE. But in Pakistan, we have all the departments, but those departments need to be really properly asked to perform their discharge their duty. Because to my understanding, if those departments, protected department, and the human resource department, the labor department, all these departments, if they work in cohesion and coherence, we can produce a better manpower. That's one. Second is what is the second and third way of enhancing our economic condition? The FDI, we have already said. The problem with us is that we have about 36 departments, and the investors coming here, besides security problem, investors coming here, they have to run around. There are in Punjab Board of Investment, I had conducted some programs once the Chief Minister was Shahbaz Sharif at that time, and there was a good response from UAE. So, but they had set their house in order first, the Punjab government, and then they had gone out for the investment. So we have to really set our house first for asking you. Now, A, that the one window system, B, that security ecosystem, C, that we have to really have a proper handling of those investors coming, and D, that we have to have a right product. That is one regarding the FDI, and we have a huge potential in so many sectors. Now, the second is, the second aspect is, what do we have with us to export in a competitive fashion? No, we have to produce our goods and services in a short term, in a medium term, and a long term manner, so that we are able to capture these markets. As I said, these visits, high-power delegation visits, like the Prime Minister did, and he's doing, they paved the way for your other improvement of other sectors. Now, if your other sectors are not strong at home, what can a strategic tour would result into? So basically, it's FDI to the export goods and services. You have to really enhance. Now, Vision 2030 has a huge, sky is the limit. You can, pitch yourself in the service sector. You can pitch yourself in the human resource sector. You can pitch yourself in the export commodities which are required in the construction industry. So all these things have to be aimed, planned, and we have to pitch it accordingly. And it's not only Vision 2030, but it's the entire Gulf state, because the political landscape, as I was saying, changing. Now the Turkey, which was supporting Muslim Brotherhood, now they are, and that was the main sore point of its relation with the Gulf countries. Now they have ironed out their relations. Now that problem is not there. The Syrian president, against the wishes of US, have visited UAE last month. So all these political scenario is changing, and the Saudi Arabia is expecting from Turkey and Pakistan now, and it's given in so many analyses, that they're expecting that this proxy war, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and other countries, that could be, if Turkey and Pakistan, they also use their goodwill and influence, this proxy war could also be covered. And now the situation and conditions are becoming more congenial. So from that angle, the economic perspective also enhances. But are we prepared for it? I think we have to really start working on war footing, restructure our all organizations, and try and see that there is no malpractices in these areas where
Indeed.
we can our economic health. Yes.
Indeed. Dr. Waqas, now let's shift our focus from the field of economy towards the collaboration between Pakistan and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the level of OIC. Recently, we saw during the 48th CFM OIC, a forceful resolution regarding the Kashmir dispute was passed, and Saudi Arabia happens to be the member of the OIC contact group on Kashmir. Foreign Minister at that time, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, said that we should move beyond passing the resolutions and go for the concrete action in order to resolve such issues. How do you think vis-a-vis Kashmir, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia could use the OIC platform in order to resolve that issue? Dr. Waqas, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sorry. I was just saying that, holding the meeting, foreign minister meeting on of this council and then the OIC contact group in past. This has been happening. To be honest, on Kashmir, there were some very strong expectations of Kashmiris, particularly when it comes to after the August 5th action of India by doing away with the special status of Kashmir. There was a very strong expectation. Actually, Pakistan has been calling for this meeting, particularly on Kashmir. It didn't happen. That was something disappointing at that time. And of course, in the world reaction, if we see other than OIC, there has been a very strong reaction from international community on the condemnation thing. It has been discussed in UNSC, and of course, it has gathered the global clout at that time. But of course, OIC time and again have been standing with particularly Saudi Arabia. If you see that the contact group, particularly on Kashmir, they have been issuing statements, they have been meeting, and of course this time the statement came as well. This has been very encouraging. But of course, I must say that the nature of the response at this time, of course, particularly after the 5th of August, the situation in Kashmir particularly has completely changed. So the expectations from our side, particularly the Kashmiri community, was very high. I guess we need to think and introspect that why it's something more meaningful couldn't happen, because and what were the key areas of improvement, I guess, in diplomacy, where we think that we need to act more proactively to gather support, particularly on the areas like issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Because in past, OIC has been very much supportive. But on the other side, as the nature of this Kashmir conflict, particularly if we see that over the period of time, it has got quite complex. Of course, the India particularly, its economy, its relationship with Saudi Arabia has over the period of time deepened, which is also a reality. But we believe that this economic relationship should not be the only rationale to have the more stronger and stable relationship. Of course, human aspirations, human thinking, particularly voice against occupation is also very much important. So I hope that in future Pakistan's stance with OIC to take up Kashmir issue more forcefully should be heard. And I guess something more meaningful should be done. In past, I guess these OIC members, and particularly, we've been reading in news that Saudi Arabia and others have been trying to bring parties, particularly on table for negotiation and dialogue, but even that didn't happen. So I guess there is expectation. Pakistan is a very key member of OIC as well, and has been always talking about the rights of people, particularly minorities and communities, particularly. If we see the Palestine, Pakistan has a very strong stance on that. So similarly, there are very strong expectations. And to be honest, if you ask me,
okay, there are strong expectations. Dr. Waqas, your point is well taken. Unfortunately, I'm short of time. I'll have to move to you, Dr. Jameel Khan. How do you think Pakistan and Saudi Arabia can collaborate from the platform of OIC in order to help resolve the lingering dispute of Kashmir?
It could make a huge difference. Saudi Arabia is a country which has its huge influence on the OIC country, and OIC is second largest organization after United Nations. It has its own value. If they unanimously take up the matter, except for the working group, they have been really taking up this Kashmir matter. But to my understanding, this Kashmir matter has to be resolved through the multilateral diplomacy, because bilateral diplomacy has not yielded any result, and the Indians are trying to have their grips in the Kashmir, and have been able to pave the way in the international arena about Kashmir in their favor, and not in their favor. Why? Because of the geopolitical and geostrategic situation of the world and of this area. And my indication is containment of China and interest of US and its allies. So I'll just leave it here. And secondly, what OIC can do that is OIC Charter Article 10. They should call the meeting after, of course, whatever is happening around Erdogan, President Erdogan, our Prime Minister, and some more countries. They should decide to call for the OIC Head of States meeting and discuss these matters, not only Kashmir, but there are other matters which are confronting
Dr. Jameel,
and that's how, particularly human right matter. Human right is the biggest weapon which can be used, and the world would then be collaborating with OIC, and that way we can, try and give some relief to the Kashmiris. Otherwise, the window of opportunity is getting quite narrow. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Jameel Khan, former ambassador, joining me on Skype. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, foreign affairs expert, joining me on the phone line. And Mr. Rana Ehsan Afzal, leader Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, joined us on Skype as well. Thank you very much for your time at Perspective, all of you gentlemen. With this, we come to the end of today's discussion. For more on this, stay tuned to PTV World.